Welcome back to the STP004 essay. If you have a Facebook account and you're a fan of good music, psychedelia, and the truth, you could head over to Men on the Border Facebook fan group. This is where I discovered the STP essay. Originally, Part 4 appeared on June 5th, 2015. I had nothing to do with this essay. I'm merely reading it on camera to share this information because I feel strongly that this is the sort of little tidbit that's been left out of the history books that's of most importance. The Monterey Pop Festival in June 1967 is perhaps remembered being the first major American appearances by Jimi Hendrix and The Who. Backstage, Who guitarist Pete Townshend met Owsley Stanley, also known as the LSD Millionaire. Now, going off script here, Owsley Stanley. You know when you see a bumper sticker, a Grateful Dead, it'll have 4 different colored teddy bears and they're all kind of dancing. That's Owsley Stanley. He looked like a bear when he danced. He was a great pal of the Grateful Dead. He designed their famous wall of sound system. It was a wall of speakers with a huge array of speakers that hung down from the top of the venue. They used 2 microphone units, and one would be out of phase, or that you could think of the positive and negative wire being inverted or flipped from the other. And this inversion canceled out the feedback they would normally get. So Owsley Stanley he's known for being an LSD cook or chef. He was the guy that went into the drug lab and made the LSD. And the reason that we remember Owsley Stanley is because he made his LSD with love. Anyone can prepare a batch of LSD, but it takes someone with a huge heart to go through the process of stripping out all the adulterants and other unnecessary chemicals to get to the heart, the just purest of pure LSD. It's a legend now. Owsley acid was the best LSD that this universe has ever had because he was a fanatic about purifying it. So Pete Townshend is at Monterey Pop. Monterey Pop, everyone knows Woodstock. Monterey Pop was Mamas and Papas. It was Janis Joplin. It was The Who. It was Jimi Hendrix. It was a wonderful music festival that is sometimes overshadowed by things like Altamont or Woodstock. There's a concert movie made from it. I would encourage you to check it out. It's wonderful. So we have June 1967, guitar player from The Who, Pete Townshend, meeting Owsley Stanley. Pete receives a drug which he swallowed on the plane going home back to England, thinking that it was LSD. In fact, it turned out to be STP, quoting Pete Townshend, something that I never would take. Pete says it was bloody terrible. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. You know how they say, under Japanese torture, sometimes if it's horrible enough, the person actually gets the feeling that they're leaving the body. In this case, I had to do just that. Abandon my body, says Pete Townshend. It was like 100 years on the airplane across the Atlantic. I never realized what a fragile mind I had. Eventually it tailed off. Then you need a week to repiece your ego, to remember who you are and what you are. This trip led Pete to abandon psychedelic drugs completely and immediately. Quoting Mr. Townshend, acid had taken me apart, but had not put me back together again. Pete turned to the teachings of Mahar Baba, and managed to put himself back together. Not all victims were so fortunate. So going off the script, this concept of time dilation, in infinity inside one moment, I've experienced this 3 times in my life, and it's one of the most terrifying things. I do not jive with dissociative type drugs, and this is a classification of psychedelics. So phenethylamine or PCP or robotrips, ketamine. And I've never done ketamine, but I know it's a dissociative, and I've heard about the K-hole, and I've been in a K-hole. It was a PCP hole. And again, I had no idea what it was. I was offered a white powder to insufflate. It was the 80s. I did this. I sniffed it. I was very drunk at the time, which is no excuse. But horrible experiences with this. There was another guy who's no longer with us, passed away from intravenously injecting heroin. This guy, Jimmy, my friend, begged me for 2 years to drink a small bottle of this Robitussin cough syrup. Supposedly had an LSD effect. And he brought these bottles over after 2 years of begging me, and I succumbed to it and drank it. And what followed was like 16 hours of me being so unbelievably terrified, like irrational fear of impending doom. Not depression, it was terror. It was sheer terror. Crying and shaking, and then it would kind of go into this euphoria, and I would laugh a little bit. I would blow my nose and clear my tears, and that would last a couple of minutes, and then I would go right like Jekyll and Hyde. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life. Now those 2 PCP overdoses that I had were a lot worse. So I can only imagine what Pete Townsend went through, and I've heard stories about people using 5-MeO-DMT, where this one guy said he went into a void and was there for 1 million years, and then his soul finally came back. And now here he is, after living 1 million years by himself with nothing, going insane, and he comes back to reality finally. So I can only speak for my own experience, and for me, my path has shown me that, like when you go to a carnival and you got $20 and you buy these tickets to go on the rides, eventually you run out of tickets. That's the same situation for me with things like the things that I reacted well to, being psilocybin or LSD. I used those tickets up about 20 years ago, and that's my path. I know there's people out there that are in their 50s and 60s, 70s and 80s that still enjoy the psychedelic experience. For me, when making a video like this, I kind of feel it's my responsibility to be blatantly honest and to stress how dangerous this stuff is, how much we don't know. And, at the same time, you think, oh, well, psilocybin, it's natural, and then this STP, well, there still is a percentage of people who are going to have an adverse reaction to something like a psilocybin experience and regret taking it. Are you going to end up having the rest of your life spent being checked off as an acid casualty or something? Well, the chances are slim, but we never know. And that's why I have to speak with caution. I have to stress, I have to be honest with myself and honest with you anytime we have this discussion. So other channels out there, I'm not naming any names. Yeah, no comment. Join me for part 5. It's a little bit longer, and I wanted to do my thing, my reality check, because I've been around a lot of party people. I came up in the 80s, and I've seen some things, and we don't know enough about this. And for every 10 great stories, there's that one really bad one, and for every 100 of those really bad ones, there's a tragedy. So we have to really, really be respectful. And I hope you'll join me for part 5. I'll see you there. Special thanks to Men on the Border, and peace.